Cancer don't take no prisoners. Either you're going to eliminate it or it eliminates you. There's no two ways about it.
The minute you're diagnosed, your immune system goes in the basement. I mean, you're in fear. I know, it happened to me. So we all need to work on the mind-body interface.
By the way, a lot of people think there's outside cures for cancer. That's not true. There is no silver bullets. Unless your own immune system, I hate to jump around here, but unless your own immune system destroys the cancer, you're going to still have it. You have to strengthen the immune system at the same time killing the tumor mass or the tumor burden upon your body. There's three types of people that cannot be cured of cancer. One is whose time has come. You know, when God calls your numbers up, that's it. There ain't nothing anybody can do. Second is another person that can't be cured of cancer. It's difficult to be cured of cancer, if not impossible, as those who benefit from their disease. In other words, they're the center of attention. They're using the disease to be waited on, to be pampered and like this. So in fact, they actually enjoy the disease. So therefore, they hang on to it and they get what they want. And the third is the most devastating and the hardest to defend, to come against. The third and the most difficult is those who will not follow instructions.
At the turn of the century, from 18 to 1900, when my daddy was born, 3% of the U.S. population had cancer of any kind, shape, or form.
Cancer is on the rise. We spend trillions of dollars. You know, we're winning the war. Hell, we're not doing a damn thing, losing our ass. 1 out of 2 people, that's 50% of people, have cancer right now.
I've had cancer twice. It's not a question of will I have cancer. It's really a question of when.
Daniel was diagnosed in January of '02 with a malignant brain tumor.
2.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
And in fact, there was a tumor growing in the previous site. And by the size of it, they determined that it was a higher grade.
I had breast and uterine cancer diagnosed in December 1990. I said no to surgery, and I survived breast and uterine cancer.
Well, it started out when we lost our first son to cancer. And after that terrible situation, then my wife, after all that stress, she came down with breast cancer. I got prostate cancer. The doctor wanted to operate like they usually do. Well, I have a hard time talking about that. That was the saddest part of our lives. But he had brain cancer. And I guess it looked to us like the chemotherapy is what killed him, but he would have died anyway. I guess it was what they knew in those days and what we knew. We didn't know much about alternative therapy at that time. So he would have died anyway, I'm sure, if it wasn't for the chemotherapy killing him. It looked like to us like it was killing him sooner. Because we'd take him in, a healthy plain boy, and he'd come back like a... I don't want to go back there. But the good news is that we learned from him how to cure his mother, and from her how to cure me, and so we just want to keep sharing and sort of multiply the experience to help other people.
What turned out is that I had 10 years ago what they called the fastest moving cancer that they knew of, and by the time we got to biopsies, the cancer was everywhere and had already made it into a lymph node. So the options were surgery and chemo and radiation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When I asked, well, you know, if I do all that, is that going to be the end of it? They said no. You know, I had a real important talk with myself, and I said, you know, do you want to die? Do you want to, you know, I believe in reincarnation, so I said, do you want to, you know, cut out and start over, you know, because you could slip out. They're saying you have this killer and 2 years to live, and you could slip out pretty quickly, and is that what you want to do? And I didn't rush to an answer. And I slept on it. by that point, I realized that I don't owe it to anybody to live either. You know, your family is just in such fear. They love you. They're scared to death. It's very difficult. But I realized that I don't owe it to them to stay alive, and it's a very, very personal choice. The answer, obviously, that I finally came up with is like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to. Now, I was just barely starting to study alternative medicine. I had stumbled upon some tricks in my life, something to relieve my migraine headaches. I never get headaches. So I knew there was something to this business of, you know, this combination of food, herbs, et cetera, et cetera. Over the course of the years, I'd heard about a Rife machine. I was already at a meditation center. I was studying with the Essenes who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls, and Jesus Christ is one of the most famous Essenes that they have. And it was actually everything that Einstein ever said. It was all about moving energy. Everything is energy. So I was 6 months studying with them pretty heavily, three to four times a week. And of course, they're very into, the Essenes have always been into body cleansing. That's how I was getting more and more interested in alternative medicine. Once these doctors told me what my option was, it just wasn't, I just couldn't do it. It wasn't acceptable. I just couldn't do it. And knowing what I knew, the small amount at that time, what I knew of alternative medicine, hearing miracle story after miracle story. So I rejected everything, to the fury of my doctors, and actually went out and sought another oncologist, gynecologist, who is probably one of the more famous ones, and again, right there in the heart of Beverly Hills, and claimed to have 1 foot in Eastern medicine, 1 foot in Western medicine. When I went to him and told him what I wanted to do, what I was trying to do, he discouraged me and said, you can't do it, not with this kind of cancer. And I was sitting there in his office, and he was sitting across the desk from me, and he says, I know what you're trying to do, but all of my patients who have treated your kind of cancer the way you want to are dead. So now I have this, you know, I have this Eastern medicine doctor telling me I'm going to die too, and I just kind of threw my hands up in the air, and I said, well, then we're going to see if it really works or it really doesn't. I was just very set on my mark. I did have support at the meditation center. Everyone there was saying, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. In my opinion, dealing with life-threatening ailments, cancer, AIDS, etc., I think that's actually the secondary disease. The first disease is fear. So I went out and treated my mind, body, and soul as one. Meaning with the meditation, doing the spiritual work, educating myself, as well as putting myself on a program, a body program. And so I just asked questions, asked for help. One person after another came up. And what I stumbled upon doing was I sort of assembled a cancer team, as I called it, or a healing team. One was a physicist, one was a microscopist, one is a kinesiologist, and they all sort of hit these different marks, and I would cross-reference anytime I found out any new information. With my cancer and treating my cancer, I did not adopt any established specific regiment that other people were doing. I sort of somehow managed to piece together from all the information that I was finding out, I pieced together something that would work for me. I did this routine and went back for biopsies about 4.5 months later, 80% cell recovery doing this. They sent the tests back, of course, 3 times because they thought it was a mistake, and it wasn't. And then 4 months after that, I went and was completely cancer-free. No cancer to be found. That was 10 years ago.
I became aware that patients who were not receiving the standard surgery, radiation, or chemotherapy were doing well on natural therapies, because in this community, Nevada happens to be a very liberal state for homeopathy and naturopathy and other alternative disciplines. So I was seeing these patients, and to my amazement, they were doing well, and this was a real awakening to me why they should be doing well when they weren't getting what I always learned was the only way to treat cancer. And by seeing this and understanding, and then educating myself, going to conferences, going to meetings, becoming involved in the alternative literature, writing some articles and being involved in a book on alternative cancer therapies, became very much and acutely aware that there are other ways to treat serious illnesses like cancer.
Really, it's, in my opinion, the drug companies kind of control everything. You know, it's all about pumping money in more drugs. In all the billions of dollars spent on cancer research, they come out with more drugs, but essentially in 23 years, they were going to use the same chemotherapy drugs on me today that I used 23 years ago. And it's just amazing to me, you know, that they haven't done anything more.
My name is Dan Raber. My age, I'm 58. Well, for the last 13 years, I've been helping people help themselves, cure themselves of cancer using a natural process with bloodroot salve and pancreatic enzymes and other modalities. I got cancer, fast-growing melanoma on my wrist. I treated myself with bloodroot for 14 days. My tendons were floating a half an inch in air. And I couldn't even pick up a cup of coffee. I had nerve damage from here, like to here, like almost like a slice of pie. And then slowly but gradually, as it healed up, naturally healed up by itself, my feeling came back, my strength come back. Now I've got as much strength in this hand as I have had before. And it's verifiable by medical tests. I've had it tested by x-rays, and oncologists have certified, and blood tests. There is no more cancer alive in my body. And we've done this in a period of less than 2 months at a cost of less than $150.
It really all started with my father. My father developed this treatment. Oddly enough, he was trained as a regular physician like everybody else, you know, to diagnose and treat with pills or treatments, whatever, symptomatically. But he had one difference. He had very severe migraine headaches, and he asked his doctors and professors what to do, and they told him, well, you know it's incurable. You know, just learn to live with it. But he set out to find a way. He said he can't live with it. He set out to find a way, and it's a long story, but he finally found someone who reported that changing their diet had changed a migraine. That set him off on a change of diet. And when he changed his diet, he recovered. When he then told some migraine patients to change their diet, and they recovered, until one migraine patient said he also had skin tuberculosis, and that went away. So no, that's a different disease. You know, he was trained that way, like all other doctors. And he found that, yes, not one, but 448 out of 450 patients recovered with this therapy. And then he found, when he treated those also by nutritional changes, that it wasn't just the TB that went away, but the heart disease and the asthma and the arthritis and allergies, all diseases disappeared as you were healing the body. And that's how eventually he also found that cancer would disappear and all the other problems.
Okay, my name's Debbie Murray, and I'm 49. I didn't know I had cancer when I first went in the hospital. When they got in there, they found I was covered with cancer. They recommended chemo. You know, I did research on the chemo, and I found out how toxic it was, you know, and what it did to your body. And I researched the Gerson therapy, which I did, and I saw how it healed your good cells, which could digest all the bad cells, and then you get rid of them through your body, so your body heals instead of killing it, you know, where the chemo killed it. And so I decided to go that route. Within 6 months, I had no cancer.
What did you have?
I had stage 3 ovarian cancer. Plus, the Gerson therapy just didn't get rid of the cancer. I had gallstones, I had diabetes, I had a cyst in my kidney, had panic attacks galore, and I had them since I was a child. There was 4 people that I knew that had at least a stage 3 or less of the cancer when I did. And The longest one made it was 9 months. None of them were here, and they all did the chemo. And I'm the only one that didn't do chemo, and I'm still here.
3 years ago, my mom passed away from cancer. It was a very tough time. I took care of her the last 3 years of her life, and I fought to keep her alive when doctors, every 3 months we'd go in for a checkup and they would say she only had 6 weeks to live, and are you going to do our treatments now? And I would say, no, just help us. We had no money at the time, so insurance wouldn't pay for it. So we ended up being stuck in Parkersburg, West Virginia without able to do any alternative treatments. So what I did was I traveled to different parts of the country and brought back some different type of nutritional therapies and oxygen supplements and things like that. And as a result, I was with her night and day for the last 3 years of her life when they said she only had 6 weeks to live. So the alternatives did keep her alive for a lot longer than they said, but it was just such a continual battle, having to use all your own money when the medical doctors would not cooperate in the least. Probably the best thing that I learned from this whole experience was when the doctor threatened me in the hospital, if you don't let me do surgery on your mom, he said, your mom's going to die within the next couple weeks. Surgery is known. And the thing that I would like everybody else to learn from my experiences, if you know something, if you know that something is not right, and if God's telling you that it's not right, you have to stand up to doctors. We have cowed down to doctors for too long, and we have put them on a pedestal. You need to stand up to doctors, and you need to get treatments. You need to get a second opinion, a third opinion, a fourth opinion, and you need to get your minister involved. And I would say the one thing is every patient of cancer needs to get their minister involved, and they need to stand up to their doctor when their doctor threatens them. Don't be scared of your doctor. Trust in yourself and trust in God. That's an excellent question. You've probably covered half the people in the world, and deep down, when any patient is threatened by death, I was in the Army during the Vietnam War, and I've never ran across anybody when threatened by death that didn't hope there was a higher power out there. They can tell you, I can talk to atheists all over the world, and they can tell you they don't believe in any higher power, but you get them on an operating table, or you get them when a doctor says you have 6 weeks to live. They might not believe in it, but they'll hope there's a higher power. And I tell all of them, well then search for what you hope for.
Because it doesn't work. It's ineffective. Conventional medicine treats degenerative disease like an aspirin for a headache. For instance, say the red light goes on the dashboard of your automobile, and you take a black tape and put it over it. Well, the light goes out, but the light says, feed me oil or I'll burn your engine. Alternative medicine has a totally different approach. The science is completely different, and there is science. They want to know what caused that headache. Take away the causes, voila, the headache disappears. It never comes back. Go to the cause, feed the body, and your body will heal itself.
There's no doubt about it, medical research is an industry. And the people who do medical research are affected by who provides the grant money to do the studies. And very rarely, even if you find a study that's been done by a university or a government agency like the FDA, you're going to find failure in the system because people are looking to keep the wheels of their company, their research business going. Probably the most recent and egregious, the most terrible example you can think of recently is this Vioxx problem. This was approved by the FDA, and over a 4-year period, 139,000 people who were prescribed this FDA-approved painkiller, Vioxx, 139,000 of them got a heart attack or a stroke. And depending on whose data you look at, something like 55,000 or 85,000 of them died of these heart attacks and strokes. And yet the FDA, who is supposed to be there for the protection of the general public, never asked for it to be removed or banned from the market. what they did do was nothing. And Merck, the producer of this drug, voluntarily took it off the market because their accountants said they would never be able to make enough profit to pay for all the awards from the lawsuits that were coming. And so they voluntarily removed it off the market. Then, to show you how silly the actions of the FDA are, their committee, their research committee, voted to put Vioxx back on the market. And they thought the general public would never see that. The problem here with the FDA and many other government agencies is when somebody retires from the FDA, or they get fired from the FDA, or they're just tired of dealing with it, they will get a pretty good job, a six-figure income job with a pharmaceutical company. So they feel that if they're really nicey nice on behalf of the pharmaceutical company, they'll get a better job and a better paying job. There is a revolving door, there's no doubt about it.
What's very interesting is, as I was first with this original Harvard grad oncologist, gynecologist, I was doing this research, and I said to him, I said, well, there is a cure for cancer, and that's the immune system, right? He said, right. I said, so all I have to do is boost up my immune system to fight this cancer. And at that point, he said, we don't know how to do that. And I said, yes, you do. Because I'd already spoken at this point with at least 100 people who had either were in the field of boosting the immune system, or actually even creating, if you will, a secondary immune system. Because what I was told at that time is everybody has cancer. Everyone is walking around with abnormal cells, and that's what cancer is. And your immune system spots it, goes after it, heals it, everything's fine. And then something happens. There's a million explanations why the immune system can no longer fight these cells, and they start reproducing themselves. So I thought that was really interesting that, you know, they didn't know how to boost the immune system. For example, simple antioxidants, you know, and getting rid of those free radicals is just a very easy way. I've spoken to so many people that just started taking, you know, antioxidants or drinking ECAC tea. ECAC tea seems to be fantastic with lung cancer. You know, on and on and on. They didn't do all of the things that I did. I really put together quite a program for myself. I went on a detox. I think the detox was probably more painful, detoxing off sugar, than the cancer itself. I literally didn't eat much at all for about 3 months. I had to clean my system, so all I was doing was juicing all day long. I was just constantly seeking out every alternative success story that I could find. So I had this positive reinforcement, and there's this, I mean, there's millions of people who have healed themselves with alternative medicine of cancer and AIDS. And what I did was I was calling them, talking to them on the phone, not only to see what, you know, did I miss something, what did they use, but also just to get that positive reinforcement. If we had on the television every day a success story of someone who healed themselves on the 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock news, someone who healed themselves of cancer and AIDS with alternative medicine, you know, the pendulum would really swing just because of that, if nothing else, that positive reinforcement. You will wake up in cold sweats after, you know, you take the plunge into alternative medicine. You wake up in the morning and you're like, am I doing the right thing? Because there's so much doubt around you and naysayers and whatnot. And that's another thing, is I really changed my environment. I really kind of pretty much got rid of most of the people around me, and wouldn't watch television, wouldn't listen to the radio, only positive. You know, I used all the great motivators, you know, everyone from, you know, Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra. I'd heard about the senator who had healed himself of cancer just with high doses of vitamin C and watching comedies. So if I was going to watch television, I only watched, you know, the Three Stooges and constant laughter. If we start doing that and start tackling this fear, we're going to have a very smooth evolution over to perhaps some health care that is not, you know, about cutting and frying and all of that stuff. There's got to be another way besides, you know, ripping out my uterus. And that's why I think that these more of these films are very important to be able to reach that person. But at this point, actually, the good news is, and that's what's the beauty of the website, icurecancer.com. The beauty is now is the internet. That would be your next step.
In December 1990, I was diagnosed with breast and uterine cancer. I almost died. I was stage 4. My doctor wanted me to see a surgeon. I said no. I decided to write a book because in less than 2 months I got rid of 2 tumors. It did take me 7 more months to get well, to rebuild my health to where I am today. And I'm 60 years old. I'm very healthy. I exercise, I work, I'm an artist. I did a very simple program, which was half-cut lemon on the lump, doing visualization. I would visualize, turn on rock music and visualize little men going down with a rope in white coats, tying a rope around the lump, and then I would pull it out to the beat of the music. And I also ran on the beach. I got an architect friend to run with me, and at first I could hardly run at all, and then slowly built up to where I could run down the whole coast part that we had picked out. And the doctor was shocked, so he didn't believe it was possible. It's what I call self-lumpectomy, and anybody can do it. It's a matter of detoxification and de-stress, lots of visualization, lots of exercise. And the Santa Claus notion is what I call it, that you can cut disease out of the body. It's entirely fiction. We have to get over it. You cannot cut disease out of the body. Surgery is the wrong approach. Chemotherapy, can you poison disease out of the body? No. Can you X-ray or use radiation to kill cancer? No, that's the wrong approach. The approach you need is to rebuild your health. Your health is deteriorated. Cancer is a degenerative disease where you have lost your will to live and you've lost your health as a consequence. And maybe it was subconscious that you had a big stress. Usually it's emotional, financial, big, huge, like bankruptcy, losing your business, but some huge stress. It covers physical, mental, spiritual, diet, exercise, visualization, group therapy, stress release, topical natural treatments, relationships, helping others. It encompasses your whole life. And I went on the program, and in under 2 months, I got rid of both tumors.
I've had 2 cancers. I had bladder cancer, and just recently I've had renal carcinoma. Early stage, and I've taken care of them both with holistic alternative medicine. Well, the bladder cancer, I use Chinese herbs plus diet, nutrition, and detoxification, and enzymes, German enzymes, proteolytic enzymes. Recently, I had early stage kidney cancer, renal carcinoma, and his oncologist said that I needed a biopsy. But I know enough to know no biopsy. They're not going to come near me with a knife, because when that knife goes in, or the needle, one can spread, and then you hear a year or 4 or 5 years later, oh, we have another cancer. It's not another cancer. It's the same cancer that went through the blood supply that nourishes the tumor or the cancer. So that if you're going to do a biopsy, or if you're going to do surgery, first encapsulate the tumor. Stop the blood supply. It's called angiogenesis. That's what nourishes it. And you then can scoop it out if necessary. But generally, the alternative doctors are able to reverse it without surgery. But if surgery is necessary, first encapsulate the tumor. And that's done with enzymes, like proteolytic enzymes, that eat away the camouflage on the tumor. The tumor coats itself with your blood, the fibrin of your blood. Fibrin is caused by stress. It's the ability to clot. Fibrin coats the tumor. The tumor then gets camouflaged, and the immune system says, you're part of me. But when you use proteolytic enzymes, those enzymes can actually eat away the protective camouflage, and then the tumor can be eaten away by the immune system. I would rank the American Medical Association on a 1 to 10 scale minus 300. They are medieval, And all they know how to do is treat cancer with chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. Your hair falls out, your teeth get bloody and loose, and you need to vomit. Something is terribly wrong with that picture. They don't know what causes cancer. You ask a medical doctor, what causes cancer? They look at you and said, the sun and cigarette smoking, and we don't know. That's why they don't know how to reverse cancer. They don't know how to go to the causes. They don't know the causes. In my book, Alternative Medicine, the Definitive Guide, that I did with 2 doctors, we have 33 categories of the causes of cancer. And you have to find which of those categories are in that person. You don't treat cancer, you treat the person who has the cancer by finding out what their poisons are, why their immune system has been deprecated, and then you feed the body, and your God-given immune system kicks in and heals. That's how holistic physicians work. I think that mainstream medicine is ignorant of what causes disease. They don't understand the cause. The first thing you ask is, what caused this problem? What allowed my immune system to malfunction? Where did the disease start? And what caused it? And in alternative medicine, we have techniques: muscle testing, kinesiology, electric dermal screening, the ability to go in using quantum physics. We have different forms of blood tests and urine tests. It's completely different. We want to find out what heavy metals. You see, we're being poisoned to death. That's why we have degenerative disease. We're being poisoned by the environment. And if you don't think the elections have anything to do with your health, you're wrong, because our environment is being corrupted with nuclear energy, pesticides and herbicides. Women who have 2 to 3 drinks of alcohol a week have 2 to 3 times, 200 to 300 times higher rates of breast cancer, because the pesticides and herbicides are outside estrogens, and the alcohol drives them into the cell. This is medical studies. In Israel, Hadassah Medical School discovered the relationship between pesticides and herbicides and female breast cancer. Forbid the use of pesticides and herbicides in only 2 things: the feed of milk cows and cattle. Nothing else changed. At the end of 10 years, women under 40, the female breast cancer rate plummeted 34%. For all ages, the female breast cancer dropped 8%, while we in the West, for the identical 10 years, went up 4%. Hartford Hospital did the same study. They did split biopsies. Half to pathology, cancer. The other half to toxicology. Inside the tumor, they found arsenic, chlordane, DDT, and PCBs. Surprise? It's not a surprise. How come I know this, an honorary doctorate in humanities, and the $4 billion a year we spend for cancer research doesn't want to know? The National Cancer Institute doesn't want to know. The American Cancer Society doesn't want to know. But it's in medical studies. Insurance companies would probably save an enormous amount of money doing the holistic approach compared to the extraordinary cost of the toxins like chemotherapy. But they're guided by MDs who are ignorant, don't want to know, and still are of the feeling that alternative medicine is anecdotal and a bunch of nonsense and no science, when the truth is that there is no science in chemotherapy other than childhood leukemia. There are no double-blind studies that they try to keep alternative medicine feet to the fire with. There are none. None. And the reason there are none is because it's a disaster. Now, our doctors use low-dose chemotherapy, with insulin potentiated properties and so forth. And there you can get some much better success using chemotherapeutic agents. Test, see which is for that patient. Test the lowest dose you can possibly do so you don't do harm. And by feeding nutrients, the hair don't fall out, the teeth doesn't get loose, and you don't have to vomit and writhe from the side effect of chemotherapy. And what about marijuana, medical marijuana? Whatever happened to the more gentle, noble society who allows cancer patients to writhe in pain and nausea because they don't believe in marijuana, when it's known by every medical institution that it can help take away this horror of pain that exists from these toxic drugs. It's a disaster when you know that something can help you and you're forced to go on the rigid, detrimental course of chemo, radiation, and surgery.
My name is Dr. Joel Wallach. I'm 65 years old, and I'm a physician. I think the thing that makes my view different on health is that I'm a veterinarian as well as a physician. We learned in the animal industry that we could keep the price of animal products down to where the average person could afford to eat them every day simply by eliminating healthcare costs. And we do this with these little alfalfa pellets. Everybody's seen these little alfalfa pellets, mouse pellets, and rat pellets, and hamster pellets, and gerbil pellets. The reason why we put these animal feeds into the pelletized farm is so that every mouthful is biochemically perfect. Every mouthful is perfect. And we've been so successful over the last 75 years that we've eliminated 900 different diseases with this little program. One of the things we learned in animals in 1912 was that there were nutrients that could reduce the risk significantly of cancer. The original one was selenium. In the Western world, this was actually in Germany, and we learned that this trace mineral selenium could actually prevent and reduce the risk of certain cancers. 10,000 years before that, the Chinese realized that arsenic, a trace mineral, was a great treatment for certain types of blood cancers like leukemia and lymphomas. And so the concept of nutrients being a preventative and treatment for cancer is not new. We do know that antioxidants are just exceptional nutritional therapies for cancer, and also preventative. For instance, you can reduce the risk of colon cancer with a single multiple. This was a nurses' health study from Harvard Medical School. They looked at 90,000 nurses over a 15-year period. They found that they could reduce the risk of colon cancer by 75%. That's right, 75%. And there's no drug that would reduce the risk of colon cancer by 1%. And then you take the antioxidants that are found in dark berries, such as blackberries and blueberries and black raspberries and black cherries and strawberries. These antioxidants that are found naturally in these dark berries can reduce the risk of colon cancer by 80%, according to the University of Ohio. And so there's an enormous amount of evidence to show that food substances and foods and trace minerals and vitamins can in fact reduce the risk of cancers. And some of them, like the trace mineral selenium, is an excellent choice for somebody who has prostate cancer and breast cancer. Enormous amount of evidence to show this. Personally, I would never recommend chemotherapy and radiation. There are times in which surgery is important to remove a large mass that's obstructing a blood vessel or maybe the digestive system, and you have to do what's called debulking the system, where you're removing a physical mass that's obstructing something. On occasion, that's necessary. But there's more damage caused by chemotherapy and radiation than there is benefit. And you want to support the immune system, which is the best friend of any cancer patient, with all the known essential nutrients. People forget that the immune system needs nutrients to function just like everything else. And so I would support their immune system with all the known essential nutrients. And then, very specifically, I would throw in all of the antioxidants, and I would err on the side of excess when it comes to the antioxidants. Doctors who treat cancer patients with chemotherapy and radiation, they get all concerned about people taking antioxidants when they're giving chemotherapy and radiation, because they're afraid that the antioxidants will neutralize the damaging effects of the radiation and chemotherapy. Well, I'd rather just leave out the radiation and chemotherapy and use only the phytonutrients and the antioxidants. There is a medical committee that determines what treatments that the insurance company will pay for, and of course they're all medical doctors. They get wine-dined and they get taken very well care of by the pharmaceutical companies, and so they choose only pharmaceuticals and surgeries that are pretty standard mainline allopathic treatments. They're never going to go. They will never, the way the insurance companies are set up, go to the cheaper, more effective treatments that can be brought up by alternative, what I call low-tech nutritional approaches. Now, personally, I don't like to try to cure cancer, because if you cure cancer, you usually kill the patient. You can kill cancer is very easy, but the side effect is the patient dies. And so I'd rather talk about managing cancer, where you support the immune system and you allow their immune system to defend them. There's people who were told by their doctors that they had weeks or months or years to live, and 30 years later they're still going. They still have their cancer, but their body's been given enough raw materials that the body's been able to learn to manage that cancer and keep it kind of walled off, or keep it in the box, as I say, so it doesn't kill the patient. So if you were to examine that patient, they would still have the cancer, but it didn't kill them over the 30-year period when the doctor said they had 6 months to live. And so that's kind of the way I look at alternative therapies, is that you're going to do a better job of managing the cancer. It's low tech, it's not a life and death treatment. You have to appreciate that the typical treatments that the allopathic oncologist or cancer doctor would use is chemotherapy and radiation, and the whole idea of radiation is just to shrink the tumor. And it's not going to be permanent. They know it's only a temporary buying of time, so to speak, a couple of months, 6 months. Some tumors maybe maximum a year. But chemotherapy, on the other hand, is a systemic poison. In fact, most of them are used as chemical warfare agents. They're very tough things, and if you survive them, they cause cancers as a side effect. And the whole idea of using chemotherapy is to poison all the cells in the body, including the healthy ones. And the fact that cancer cells are more rapidly growing, they're going to be a little more susceptible to these systemic toxins than a normal cell. You may get more damage done to the cancer cells, and then they bring you to the brink of death, and then hopefully they can bring you back from the edge. Well, that's sort of a brinkmanship therapy. And of course, they kill more patients with the treatment than they do with the disease.
Actually, if you just use good old common logic and do, a bit of research, you can definitely figure it out for yourself, and you can definitely feel inside yourself, that's not right for me, or this is right for me. And for some people, what's right for them is to have surgery and go that route. But there's an awful lot of calling out now, especially now. I've been involved with the alternative world now for 10 years, and I've seen quite a shift. It's pretty interesting. And there's such an outcry for, alternatives to surgery and chemotherapy. One of the other things I think that is just common sense is that, since really one of the only things that can cure cancer is the immune system, then why do chemotherapy that actually destroys the immune system? That never really made a whole lot of sense to me. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't do it. It doesn't do it for the body. It destroys everything. One of the things that I really focused heavily on was the spiritual aspect of this. And through that process, I sort of rediscovered who I was. And what I mean by spirituality is it doesn't have to be this airy-fairy thing, but a lot of meditation. There's been more stories about people, with disease, and they quit their job and they pursue their passion. Sometimes that's all you have to do, and you become completely healed. Some people, not all, that are involved with alternative medicine, they'll come to me and they come to me and they say, okay, and what juice was it, and what supplement, and what, and it's almost creeping into Western medicine about what pill can I take. The ones who are perfect on their diets but don't do the spiritual work are not coming back with results as quickly as the ones who cheat on their diets but are really focusing on the spiritual work. They come back with much better results. And that is a very interesting statistic. So the spirituality and the mental agility of grasping and encompassing this dis-ease that's in your life is very, very important. It certainly is, you know, in my universe and the people that I've talked to and worked with and myself, etc. Midway into the cancer, I guess I had been on my healing regimen for, it was around the 4-month mark. And you know, I had a real important talk with myself, and I said, you know, do you want to die? The answer, obviously, that I finally came up with is like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to. Well, when I made that decision, that day I went to one of my kinesiologists, and she was working on me, kinesiologist, chiropractor, you know, she practices many kinds of alternative medicine. And she was working on me on the table for just a minute, and she jumped back and threw her arms up in the air, and she said, whoa. She said, wait a minute. She said, you're healed. You've made some decisions. It was pretty interesting. And she was the one that said, now you go, you're ready. You go back for those biopsies. And just tell the doctors, just humor me. Just do this for me. And that's when I went and came back with that 80% cell recovery.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Bernardo. I'm a naturopath, and I treat people holistically, which means I treat the whole body. I use no prescription drugs, none of that. What happens, a patient comes to me with cancer, their doctor or oncologist does what he has to do, and normally the patient comes to me in the final stage of the disease, and many times we can turn them around very dramatically. One of the things that we found out that all cancer patients, their pH is acid, which by this I mean everything in nature has a pH from 1 to 14, 7 being water, blood being 7.2. When we're born, all our intercellular fluids, including saliva, have to have a pH of 7.2 to 7.4. When cancer patients come, or anybody's very sick, they're very acidic. Their pH runs around 5. So what I get the patient immediately, and I've been called a quack for saying this, put the patient on lemon juice and water. Lemon juice is an acid, and when you drink it, it helps to an alkaline tide in the body, so your pH starts going up. Might take 3 weeks to 4 weeks, because you're approximately 80% water. So if you weigh 200 pounds, there's about 160 pounds of water. We have to raise the pH to 7.2. And it's been my opinion that all cancer ceases at pH 6.8 and it dies at pH 7. I have many patients that came to me that were told, go home and die. You got 4 weeks, 5 weeks. But I have many other people that come to me, they've been written off. And I've been arrested because I was treating patients in this country, and I'm not supposed to treat patients. I treated only patients that had been written off. It had chemotherapy, they had radiation, they had countless surgeries, and they never address the problem. You only have cancer because you have acidosis. That means your cellular fluids pH are in the neighborhood of 5, and that's why you have pain. Why do you have pain? Because vinegar is a pH of 5.3. If I inject vinegar, you have excruciating pain, and that's why you have pain, because you're very acidic. Cancer is on the rise. We spent trillions of dollars, you know. We're winning the war. Hell, we're not doing a damn thing, losing our ass. 1 out of 2 people, that's 50% of people have cancer right now. Okay, 50%. I had cancer. All my nurses are crying. I said, why are you girls crying? Well, you got cancer, you're going to die, and I'm going to lose my job. I said, if I can't get rid of my cancer, I deserve to die. A month later, my cancer was normal, as evidenced by my PSA, which had been 48, and then it was 0.0. It's been 0.1, something like that, in the last 5 years. And I tell patients when they come to me, well, my doctor says I got 2 weeks or I got a month or 2 months. I said, unless he gets a phone call from God, and God tells him, Mrs. Such and Such has only got 2 weeks or a month, then you can believe it. What the hell? He's just a man. He goes to the toilet like every other man. He's not God. He may think he's God. He's arrogant. Most of them are. I've been in medicine 51 years, and I can tell you 20% of the doctors are fantastic. The others, unfortunately, are in it for money. Look, they're talking about prostate cancer. Well, we got to freeze it. We got to do this. It needs some nutrients. I've never had anybody that died of prostate cancer. I've had Scripps La Jolla, a Dr. LaChan sent me a patient 6, 7 years ago. His PSA was 4,280. Anything over 4 is cancer. Normally at around 1,200 you die. This was a mean old crabby guy and I should have let him die. But anyway, Dr. LaChan said, can you help him? I said, well, how much time you give me? He said, a week. I said, oh, hell, that's plenty of time. He said, Bernardo, get serious. His PSA is 4,280. I said, well, hell, that's no big deal. He said, get serious. You understand English? I said, I'm an American, dummy. 4,280. I said, send him to me. He said, he also got bone cancer. I said, of course, it comes with the territory. I said, what's his alkaline phosphatase? He said, it's over 2,000. I said, no big deal. He said, Bernardo, are you for real? Are you a madman? I said, call me what you want. Send me the guy. When the guy came, he could barely walk. He was walking like a 100-year-old guy. Pain, we had to put like 5 pillows on him because of the pain. A week later, his prostate-specific antigen called PSA, which is a marker that identifies the cancer in the prostate, had dropped by 1,000 points. In 5 weeks, his PSA was 0 point something. 5 weeks. Dr. LaChance told me, he says, I find it hard to believe that you can do this, and over here we can't do those things. His pH when he came was like 4.8. At 4.5, you die. Slowly, within 3 weeks, his pH was 7.2. And in 5 weeks, he's completely free of cancer.
I'm Lucy Kabrinsky. I am 57 years old, and I'm self-employed. I was diagnosed with cancer in Russia. I came to the United States and went through conventional treatment, and first time it was successful. Like in couple years, I got new episode of cancer and was introduced to Dr. Bernardo and got this treatment under his protocol, how he does it. And since then I am in remission, and that's it.
You know, I'm not a diplomat. I call it the way it is. When I was a young man, I went to Korea with 4,000 men. A year later, only 7 of us came back. That changes your priority in life. When you see fine young men torn to pieces, you know you've got to do something when you get back, if you get back alive. And that's why I've devoted my life 51 years. You would say, well, hell, that guy's got to be rich. Hell, I'm in the hole over 270,000. But I saved a lot of lives. And that's what it's all about. Doctor used to chew my ass out. Well, you got to get a Mercedes. Hell, I can barely afford to drive my Chevy. What the hell are you talking about, Mercedes? And, you know, once you've seen death, and I've seen enough death to last me 10,000 years. I've seen pain. I've had pain for thousands of years, more than I can ever handle. In fact, I lost a girl once, and I told God, that's it. There's nothing you can do, because I'm going to go home, get my 45, go in the backyard, and blow my brains out, and there's nothing you can do. So I drove home. I lost this beautiful girl, just hysterical, because I used to get very, very depressed, suicidal every time. So I drove home, ran upstairs to get my 45, had 7 rounds of armor piercing. I'm going to go in the backyard and just go, just like that. And I went in there, somebody stolen my pistols. That's right.
First day when I came, and I had a tumor in the shape of pancake. So it was obvious, the size and all this stuff. So he put a circle around it on the first day. In a couple days, he compared the result, how it shrink. So he put another smaller circle. And it was quite an experience to look at mirror and see how it changed.
My name is DeWitt Bell. I'm 64 years old. My occupation is designer, writer, businessman. About a year ago, a little more than a year ago, I had gotten very sick and I'd lost about 30 pounds, and I said, okay, I surrender. I'll go to the AMA, I'll go to conventional medicine, and I will see what they say. I come out of the colonoscopy and they say, here's a picture of your problem. You have a stage 4 tumor. Your colon is almost completely blocked, and if we do not operate, you'll be dead in 3 weeks. So I said, well, I don't have much choice, do I? Go ahead. Then they come in and they say, okay, now you have to do chemotherapy, because people who have what you have will be dead in 5 years. The chance is that 60% chance you'll be dead in 5 years if you don't do that. And I said, well, honestly, I've never seen chemotherapy cure anybody. You know, I've seen a lot of people take it, I've seen their hair fall out, I've seen them get nauseous, but I've never seen anybody get well. So I'm going to have to do a little research on this. So I got out of the hospital and I called a doctor, a naturopathic doctor whom I knew, and I said, do you know any alternative cancer treatments? He said, I've heard of one guy, Dr. Bernardo, but let me check. So he called, said, yeah, he's probably the guy.
He had colon cancer. I said, get rid of the colon cancer. Try, get back, because if you have surgery for colon cancer, it will always come back within 3 to 4 months. No ifs and buts about it. Why? They did not address a problem. The problem is acidosis. You can take out all the tumors, you can give all the radiation, you can do all the surgeries. You have not connected the problem, which is acidosis, and that's what activates the cancer. Well, we'll give you radiation. What the hell is that going to do? Except screw you up.
So I called Dr. Bernardo and I said, what is it you do? He said, call these numbers. He gave me 3 numbers to call. Everybody I called wept over the phone and said he saved my life. Everybody had given me up for dead, and he saved me. And so I called him back up and said, okay, what do you want me to do? He gave me 3 things to do, and he said, as soon as you can travel, because I just got out of the hospital and could hardly walk. This was last May. He said, come down and see me. So I went down to see him. I walked into him. He took one look at me. He says, you're easy. You'll be cured in 6 months. Actually, I was cured in 3 months.
And I made that resolve when I left Korea alive, that nobody would ever die in my presence. I have a naturopath license in the United States. I also had a license from Mexico. Now, our licenses in Mexico are not recognized over here. So people would call me and say, my father's dying, or my mother's dying, or my son is dying. Can you please help me? I said, well, you know, I can't treat over there, but I'll go over there. And of course, the patient is dying, and of course, I treat the patient. And I had 30 patients that I treated, and one died. When I got there, she weighed about 65 pounds. And I told the husband, it's too late for her. There's nothing we can do. So anyway, she died the next day. He called the AMA and said, well, I think a doctor here killed my wife. Well, they raided me. They come in with shotguns and everything else. And luckily I wasn't there. I was in Mexico. And my secretary called me. He says, all the cops in the world are over here. I said, what do they want? He said, they want to arrest you. I said, for what? He said, you treated patients over here? I said, yeah, I treated them. They're alive. He said, well, you can't treat them over here. I said, they were going to die, dummy. He says, I don't care. He said, you show up here and we need to talk to you. So I went up there about a week later. And she said, tell us everything you've done. So I did. And after I finished, they said, get up. You're under arrest. I said, well, what? He said, you treated patients over here. Next thing I know, I'm charged with 25 felonies. $2 million bail. $2 million. I said, Jeffrey Dahmer only ate 18 people, and he was only $1 million bail. He said, well, you're more dangerous. Next thing you know, they have my picture in about 30 newspapers around the world. I mean, in the United States. They had me on $2 million bail. Captured Dr. Death, alias Dr. Bernardo, the assistant DA. We have to make an example of this man. He's dangerous because he practices alternative therapy, and even though he's a naturopath, that doesn't call for him to be giving IVs to people that are dying, so forth and so on. Well, they were right. But I cannot stand people that die if I can do something about it. Make long story short, the trial goes on for about 2 weeks, and it's on ABC, CBS, and NBC every night for about 2 weeks. And the guys in jail will say, "Hey, Doc, you're on television again. Come see you." Her lady's doctor came. He said she was terminal. She wanted to die. She was down to 65 pounds because her husband treated her like a dog. And she told me, "Don't save me. I want to die." I said, "You're dying anyway." So anyway, the judge says, "Counselor, I got great news. I finally got a cell for Dr. Bernardo in Folsom Prison. And he's going to serve 20 years. Not a day off for early good behavior or early parole. He will serve 20 years." So I told him, "Your Honor, hell, make it 40 years. But I'll make you a promise. I'll make you a solemn promise. Like MacArthur said, I shall return. And you listen, when I get out of prison, you listen for a truck and trailer coming up the front door." He said, "What truck and trailer?" I said, "The one that got it loaded with gasoline and composition C. Composition C is several hundred times stronger than dynamite. And I will turn this building into white talcum powder, Your Honor, including you. And I'll be happy to drive that truck." So the guy went berserk. "Put this man in the cooler. Get him out of here." I was hoping he'd have a stroke, but it didn't happen. And finally, the judge says, "Well, Counselor, we're ready to sentence him." He said, the judge says, "Any last words?" I said, "Well, you going to take me out and shoot me?" He said, "No, you're going to serve 20 years. I said, "Okay. I did my duty as God gave me the light to do this duty. What is my crime? There's 29 people whose lives are saved, and you can send me to 100 years. I don't give a damn. And probably, unless I go to solitary, I'll be treating prisoners over there." I said, "People will not die in my presence." So anyway, he said, "Okay, Counselor, I'm ready to sentence your man." So I go. Bernardo, about this time, this guy busts through the front door. He said, "Who are you?" "Friend of the court, Your Honor, amicus curiae." "What do you mean? What do you mean busting in here?" He said, "Your Honor, we've checked this man's record." He said, "What do you mean check this man? Who are you?" He said, "I'm chief of psychiatry at the VA hospital in La Jolla." Matter of fact, that you people say he didn't serve in the military. Wrong. His record shows above and beyond the call of duty, time and time again, with complete disregard to his personal safety. We feel it's a great injustice if you send this man to prison. He is mentally unstable, Your Honor. He has post-traumatic stress." So I said, "Post-traumatic stress? It's a cop-out for a bunch of goddamn cowards. What are you talking post-traumatic stress? Don't give me that brush crap." He said, "You see, Your Honor, he refuses to believe that he's sick." I said, "I'm not sick. I just saw so much death. Nobody's ever going to die in my presence. If it means my life, do it." So then he said, "Your Honor, you must release him to me in the fairness of justice." He said, "Well, what are you going to do to him?" He said, "Well, we're going to make him halfway balanced. As you can see, he's way off kilter. He's very unstable." So anyway, he said, "All right, you got him for 90 days. You bring him back, make sure he's stable, because I want him to realize the gravity of the 20 years he's going to spend." So anyway, they took me up to Palo Alto, and I was tortured mentally. Terrible. It was the worst time of my life. They wanted to know what I saw there, and I wouldn't tell them. So they finally made me break down. "You have to tell us what you saw." I said, "You weren't there. You don't have a right to know what happened over there." So anyway, after a few days, they broke me in. I told them. So 90 days later, they brought me back. And my attorney picked me up at the airport, and he said, "Well, they're going to sentence you tomorrow morning." I said, by this time I had a prayer chain of a couple thousand people. I said, "I'll leave it up to God. He wants me to go to prison, I'm ready to go. Wants me to stay there 100 years, I'll go. Take me out in the back and execute me, I'll go." The judge says, "Is this Bernardo?" "Yes." "Are you the counselor from Texas?" "Yes." "Did you pay your fees?" "Yes." Well, I've been reading his report. There's no question that this man is obviously mad. His desire to save lives, whether it was due to what he saw in combat or his mental illness, whether it's post-traumatic stress, I'm not going to say. But I will do no good to send this man to prison. So I'm going to dismiss him and not put him on some type of probation. And that was it. That was it. My father was a country doctor. He practiced for about 40 years. People had money, he charged them. Didn't have money, well, today's Thursday, I don't charge on Thursday. 20 years after he died, people would still bring vegetables to the house. 20 years after he died. That's what being a doctor is.
I would rank the American Medical Association on a 1 to 10 scale minus 300.
How about a minus to 2,000?
The American medical system, scale 1 to 10, 10 is best? 0.
Depends upon how you define within the system. If you're saying how do we rate the ability of surgeons to do dramatic surgery, like in accidents and stuff like that, I would rate it as a 10. If you're going to rate America on the basis of the quality of health care, I'd probably rate it as a 1, because the health care in the United States, we're one of the sickest nations of the world. Of all the organized nations, we are down on the bottom of the list as follows as quality of life, extension of life, and the health care that we have on that process. As far as the ability of citizens to be able to take advantage of the medical services, I'd probably rank us as a 2 or 3, because organized medicine is so expensive and we don't have a system of medicine that people can access and have advantage of. So it would vary in its definition.
Critics of allopathic medicine say that it's become a system in which all decisions are based on what will create the highest profits for doctors and drug companies, rather than on what will cure people. Do you think that that's true?
Well, there's no doubt about it. The medical system has been a terrible failure. It is a corrupt system. We spend right now $1.8 trillion, 2/3 of the world's entire annual expenditure for health care, and yet we rank 46th in health and longevity. So there's no doubt that it's been a failure the way it runs. If you eliminate the antibiotics out of the 250,000 drugs that are in the PDR, the physician's desk reference, the drugs that doctors have access to treat people, you eliminate the 500 antibiotics, that still leaves 249,500, and there's not a single one of them designed to cure anything. They're all designed to milk the insurance system, and it's basically been the general public that has given over their responsibility for their health to the medical system. And of course, politicians would buy votes by saying, I'll get you more health care benefits, and unions would buy votes and support and by saying, hey, we'll get you more medical benefits. And the medical benefits system has actually chased so many jobs, manufacturing jobs, IT jobs out of America, that personally I look at the medical system as bankrupting America.
I'm not that cynical about conventional medicine to think that that is actually the case. I just think that conventional medicine is not broad-minded enough to see the value in natural therapies. And you're quite correct in saying there is no money in a pharmaceutical developing a natural product because they can't patent it. There's no way they can make any profit on it. So there's no incentive, absolutely none, for any money-making commercial outfit to develop a vitamin C protocol or a multiple vitamin protocol for any type of disease or cancer.
I would hesitate to say and use the term doctors in that terminology. Doctors are trapped into a system of medicine, and that many of them do not like the system of medicine and are leaving the system of medicine for other professions. If you said the pharmaceutical industry and the profit ranking in there, yeah, I would agree that it is a very highly profit-oriented process. At one time, the medical field was a field of service, and physicians went into the profession, and nurses and others went into the profession to perform service for humanity. And the system that we have based, particularly in the United States, is a capitalistic system of making profits. So the insurance companies and the HMOs and the pharmaceutical industries are all on a capitalistic approach to make money. And many physicians are trapped in that approach, and they don't like it. They're working huge number of hours for a little amount of money, to be honest with you. So the system is capitalistic, but many of the people in it are not necessarily capitalistic itself, particularly physicians. There are many good ones in there that don't like the system they're in.
You don't vote, you get the kind of government you deserve. You vote, and you vote people in who will create a national health insurance so that everybody is covered. It's pathetic. And of course, you'll find the pharmaceutical industry doesn't want this because they know what's coming. Price controls, and there's no bigger earner than petrochemical and the pharmaceutical industry. They'll sell you down the river for their profits.
I believe in angels, and I believe in you. I believe in the simple things and everything you do. I believe in the heavens above, and I believe in truth. I believe in the love we have, because I believe in you. So tell me, do you feel the way that I feel? And tell me, would you give